Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today's topic is why companies' share prices keep growing.
Disclaimer, ASIC, if you're listening, ASIC.
We're not talking about all companies. We're not talking about forever.
We're not implying that every single company's share price will continue to grow forever. What we want to talk about is the concept of companies in general. I get asked this quite a bit. I get asked, when will this company's share price hit the ceiling? And I say, well, there is no ceiling.
Yeah.
And
you can understand why. Like it's an understandable concept.
It is an understandable concept. So what I wanted to go through today is why companies' share prices keep growing, and why they can continue to keep growing. And I want to talk about four key themes here. I want to talk about four main things. So for me, this is not an exhaustive list, but the four key elements that grow companies' value and share prices are, number one, value add. So what I'm talking about there, companies take something, whether it's a raw material or a service or a product, and they add some value to that, and they actually then sell it for a premium.
Yeah.
So the raw materials that get rounded up into whatever product or widget that we're talking about here, I'll use a real example in a minute. Companies package that up into some sort of value add, and they can charge a premium for it. So they obviously charge more than what it costs to produce. As a result of that, they make profits. So profits is quite simply, we bring in $100 million. We have $50 million of expenses, to use a simple example. We have $50 million of profit before taxes. With those profits, companies will retain some of those earnings or profits. So same example, $100 million of revenue by adding value to something. $50 million of expenses, $50 million of profit. Some goes to the ATO, as we know, in tax. What they do with a lot of the remaining part of it is either pay it out as a dividend to a shareholder, which you get if you are a shareholder. But what they also do, every company, and this is true of all growing companies, every growing company retains some of those profits. Now, what they do with those retained profits is a number of things, but essentially it goes back into that company to grow that to grow that business. And then we've got inflation. Yep. So inflation means that
over time that $100 million worth of revenue each year, just through purely things getting more expensive over time, that number will go up.
Yes, and we see this with property all the time. Yeah. So everyone recounts they bought a $10,000 house back in 1965, and now it's worth $500,000. Yeah. Well, that's inflation. Yeah, that's still a 3-bedroom house.
Yes,
and it hasn't turned into a 23-bedroom house. Yeah, what's pushed that up over that period of time is inflation. So that happens with companies again. So there's four things again: value add. So they take something and add value to it, package it up and sell it. Number two, profits. They make a profit from that. Number three, from those profits, they retain some of those profits, or retain earnings, as they're more commonly known, and they grow the value of their business. And number four, inflation. So again, it's not an exhaustive list here, but I've grouped it into four main things. Yep. The example that I'm going to use here is an Australian company that we haven't talked about before, and they get overlooked a lot of the time. It's a company called CSL. They're in the top 10. They're one of the top 10 largest companies in Australia. Now, on their website, this is from their website taken during March of 2022.
Again, I'll throw another disclaimer in. This is not investment advice to buy CSL shares.
No.
We have no opinion about this.
We just want to give people an example of how this works. So CSL on their own website, as of March 2022, say it began with a promise. CSL was formed more than 100 years ago to save lives using the latest technologies. In the century since, CSL has grown into a global biotechnology leader, driven by that same promise to save and improve lives. So we offer the broadest range of quality plasma-derived and recombinant therapies in our industry. Our ability to innovate and deliver life-saving medicines for patients with rare diseases and other unmet medical needs around the world has earned us a reputation for always putting patients first. We are CSL, and we are driven by our promise. Now, there's a value add.
How much? That's a good example of one where you say that value add of, I don't know what the raw materials of a vaccine that's produced by CSL is. I'm guessing it's not much, but how much are you willing to pay for that vaccine?
So people talk about CSL as the blood products company. Yeah. They say they're the blood products company. Now they're taking something that we've got going through all of us and adding a tremendous amount of value to that. Yeah. So they're taking a raw material, if you like, and adding value to that. From that, they're making a profit because they have something of value to sell. From that, they've retained earnings. They've been going for longer than 100 years. And over that time, inflation has pushed the price of everything up, and it's certainly pushed the price of things that have become more valuable up. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that 100 years ago, we know that CSL wasn't doing things as good as they could do at this in 2022. As a consequence, they've improved the way they do things over that last 100 years. They've improved their products. They've improved their technology. They've put money that they've made from profits made in previous years back into themselves, a la the retained earnings, and grown their company each and every year. Now, just have a look at some of their key metrics. So, and this is from their 2021 financials, which are available on their company website. So, their earnings per share in US dollars. So, in 2016-17, it was $2.94 per share. So this is basically what they've actually earned.
This is the profit. So earnings is another word for profit.
For profits.
Interchangeable words.
So per share, they basically just take the total profit divided by the number of shares. It's grown from $2.94 to $3.82 the following year, to $4.24, to $4.63, to finally $5.22 per share in 2020-21. Now, consider that for a minute. 2016-17, $2.94, let's call it $3 per share. $2.20 to 2020-21, over $5 per share. So they've increased their profitability considerably over that period of time.
So I think... So I'd actually take a step back from it. You go, there is only one way that they can be making that much more in profit per share is that the value that they are adding. So I guess
absolutely
the thing is that they are that much more valuable to the consumer who is buying that end product. Which drives that earnings metric, which means that they are making that much more in profit because they're adding that much more in value.
So from the profits they make from 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, so on, what they've done with a lot of those profits is plowed that back into their own company and done things better or added new products to their offering, or bought other companies. That's the other thing that good quality companies often do is buy out a competitor, or buy another company that's very aligned with them that can add more value. Look, the mere fact of doing that means that's one way that their profits grow every year. By those retained earnings. Go back to Woolworths for a moment. 5 supermarkets in 1925, 2022, over 1,000 supermarkets. So how did they get from 5 to over 1,000? Retained earnings is one of those things. So they made a profit from 5 supermarkets, put that profit back into the company, open another 2 to get to 7. They got to 10. They kept going. They made a bigger profit. They ploughed that back in. It takes time, but over 100 years later, they now have over 1,000 supermarkets. So all of the good quality companies continue to do that, and as a consequence of those of the value add, leading to the profits, leading to retaining some of those profits and growing the business, and the cost of everything going up over time. Their profits continue to rise and rise and rise. Now, what does profit translate into? It translates into share price. And it's as simple as that. If I have shares in CSL, and for each share, they're making a profit of $2.94, and a mere 5 years later, for each share that I own, they're making a profit of $5.22. The share price has only got one way to go, and that's up. Now, it doesn't mean that it'll go up every single day or every single month or every single year.
It doesn't mean that share price has grown in a nice, neat, even line either. There will have been, if you look back at that share price, it will have fluctuated wildly. But when you look at it as a yearly thing, I think it removes that whole concept. If you look at it as a bar chart versus a line chart, you can see that, okay, I was making $3 of profit per share. Now I'm making $5. It has to be more valuable. It has to be worth more money. My share of that business has to be worth more money. It's not a squiggly line. It's just simple economics.
Absolutely. Look, the other thing, when we talk about retained earnings, with Woolworths, it's a simple example. They needed to get from 5 supermarkets to 1,000. So they ploughed money back in, and it went into bricks and mortar effectively, to more supermarkets. With a company like CSL or a technology company or something like that, it's ploughed back a lot of the time into research and development. So 2016-17, the research and development spent was $667 million US. So fast forward to 2020-21, it was just over $1 billion US that they put into research and development. Do you think they have done things better over that period of time, or worse, by putting, and here's the figures, $667 million into research and development, followed by $702 million the following year, followed by $832 million the following year, followed by $922 million the following year, followed by $1 billion in 2021. Do you think they've done things more efficiently and offered better products and new products and all those types of things?
The great phrase there, that value add. Like, if you've spent that much money on trying to develop better products, that has to be a more valuable thing to the consumer. If you've spent that amount of money on developing new products, or making your existing products better, or whatever the case may be there, that has to be more valuable to the consumer, which has to then flow through to increased earnings or increased profits.
And again, are we saying put all your money into CSL? Absolutely not. So we just wanted to highlight the way that companies work. So that so doing that, I'll stand here and argue with anyone, including I won't pick a fight with ASIC, but I'll argue with anyone that fundamentally their share price cannot keep growing. It can keep growing into perpetuity.
Well, there's no limit. I think
there's no limit.
It's not as though their share price was at a point 5 years ago, and now it's gone up by 50%. It's not magic.
It's not magic.
Their earnings per share have gone up by that amount. The business is that much more profitable. I think a couple of thoughts as you ran through this, Michael. Firstly, that makes it that's a. I think it's hard to see that in a big business like a CSL or a Woolworths, even, for example. I was just thinking about the example of a friend of mine's got an electrical business that he started 2-3 years ago now. Yep. And like many of these businesses, it started with him and a ute. And so what's happened is in that first year, if he took his wages into account, he probably made a little bit of profit on top of what he would have made just on pure wages. He then used that money to build up a bit of a bankroll, and then he's put on an apprentice. And then, so the apprentice has actually allowed him to increase revenue, which has increased his profit a little bit in that year, which has led him to buy another ute, which he's then got another tradesman in. So what he's done is, and so this guy was just putting solar on my roof 3 days ago, and so
he's my guy too. I'm getting renovations done right now, and the man that you're talking about is my guy. He's in my place.
There's no magic to this. You go. I knew that I needed solar on my roof. Yeah. I'm not going to put. I could go and buy the solar panels.
Yep.
I guess I could. I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't know what I need. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to put them on. I don't know how to interact with Ergon to do all those other things. He is going to buy solar panels for, I'm guessing, $6,000. He's going to spend $2,000 on labour and on the overheads of his business to get his guys there for 2 days to put it on. And he's going to charge me. So it's going to cost him $8,000. He's going to charge me $12,000. I'm guessing. I have no idea. But so there's that value add component in the small scale. Like I now have solar on my roof, which I didn't have, and I'm willing to pay $12,000 to have that solar. Meanwhile, he'll probably send me a bill for $15,000, and then I'll have to kick and scream and say I've already recorded a podcast about it. But so there's value added there. I'm happy to pay that because there's value added. He's made $4,000 profit on that job.
Yep.
Yeah. And if he does that across the whole organisation for the year, again, to use simple terms, he might turn over $1 million for the year, and his expenses for the business might be $500,000. He might make $500,000 in profit. What that then allows him to do is, with that $500,000, he's going to go and rent a shed somewhere that he can store more solar panels or more electrical equipment or whatever, or buy a new machine that he can use to more easily get his blokes up onto the roof, or whatever he's going to do there, so that then the next year, the value that he can add to those consumers goes up, and his revenue goes up, and as a result, his profits go up. And he's going to retain some of those profits. Now, some of those profits he's going to take out and go and spend and have a fat time with, and probably buy racehorses and do things like that. But there's no magic there that if, we all know the story, the guy that electrician who starts with a ute and himself and then ends up with a business with 30 staff and, a warehouse somewhere and, 3 people in the front office and someone full-time estimator and all these. On a small scale, I think we can all kind of understand that there's no limit to that, really. To some degree, he can go from one man and a ute to 30 people in Townsville, and then he can open an office in Brisbane, and then he can, he can expand across Australia, and there's really no limit to his ability to provide that service across the world, essentially.
Yeah, and look, all along the way, look, anyone that tells you small business, like the guy that you're describing now, or big business, anyone that tells you they've worked out the secret formula is lying.
Yeah.
So you're learning every single year. You're learning and you're fine-tuning all the time. Yeah. You've never fully worked it out. No. But going back to CSL, they're 100 years old.
Yeah.
Like, do you think they're doing things better now than they were 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like in that last 100 years, they've worked out what doesn't work to a large extent, what does work, what to focus on, what to hone. Is it flawless? Absolutely not. No. I assume some of this research and development money has gone into things that were not commercially viable.
Yes, that's right.
Look, the history books are littered with the carcasses of dead companies that haven't moved with the times, haven't done things efficiently.
Yep.
Look, it's not flawless. You can diversify away from that, of course you can. But we're talking collectively here. This is how good companies work. Good companies all have, for me, at least those first 3 elements, and the 4th one is out of their control. Yep. So the 3 elements are value add. So they actually offer something that is of value to people.
Yep.
They take raw materials and turn them into something that is valuable to someone, and therefore they can sell that, and that leads to number 2, where they make profits. And profits in turn lead to number 3, which is a crucial element for actually growing as a company. It's retaining some of those profits and using that to improve things or open new supermarkets or open new product lines and so forth.
The only other point that I have to add to this, and I think we're ready to wrap it up, is that there's a phrase that I hear all the time when you talk about people, hey, you probably need to have a fair bit of your retirement savings invested in companies. And I go, I don't know, it seems like gambling. When you break it down like this, so I like investing and I like gambling. I have a lot of fun gambling. To me, this is the weirdest form of gambling I've ever heard of.
It's boring and consistent and predictable.
To me, it's when people go, it's like gambling. I think that's the way that I'd say it is. When we're talking about these numbers for CSL, it's a bar chart that you can track and follow over time. When people say it's like gambling, what I think they're looking at is the line graph, which is this share price going up and going down, and they're looking at it over a month at a time and going, it's up by 5%, it's down by 10%. The gambling component, if what you're doing when you're buying companies feels like or looks like or seems like gambling, you're doing it completely wrong. You're focusing on the wrong things.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. For more information and resources, visit the Money Over 50 website, mo50.com.au. We look forward to catching up again soon.